Hey everyone, welcome back, hopefully, to the We Fucking Love Startups podcast. I'm your host, Troy Hammond, and on today's episode, we're actually chatting with two people. We're chatting with Phil Thomson, and we're chatting with Kirsti Grant. They both work at Auror, which is a crime-fighting software, and they wanted to come on and talk about how they work together and the relationship between the CEO and people experience. Fascinating conversation to be had. We talk about their culture and how it's scaled. We talk about how they actually set their culture in terms of their values and they're reshaping their values, and the authenticity that they have in their team, and how they got to 100 people by keeping that open and honesty and like feedback communication loops around their business. And so really awesome chat. If you like people and culture, if you like business strategy, if you like crime fighting software, if you like hearing about working with police, you'll enjoy this one.
Kia ora. Thanks for tuning into the We Fucking Love Startups podcast, brought to you by Talent Army.
How did you guys meet anyway?
Very random fun story. We met in 2017. We were at the SASTA conference in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And Tim Norton from 90 Seconds, we're at this pre-party. He's like, hey, I'm going to this tech crunch party, you should come. And we were in like this mode of like, sure, let's do anything we want. So we go to this party with Tim Norton, and Kirsti, I think, was also on the same mode.
Yeah.
Didn't know each other at all. End up at this party with, I think there was 6 billionaires in the room, and we were well out of our depth, but just the Kiwis doing what we do.
Yeah.
And then next minute, I think it was like 3 a.m, we're at a diner in San Francisco chatting with Kirsti over some late night food and
burgers. It started with burgers.
Hit it off, and by the time we got back to New Zealand, it was pretty obvious that we wanted to start working together. We were less than 10 people at the time, and wanted to grow the company, and thought that hiring was a key part of that, obviously. And so Kirsti started 1 day a week contracting and working with other companies, and every sort of 6 months she'd add a day on. And next minute it's 5 days a week, and
joins at the hip.
5 years go by.
Yeah, awesome. It's not unusual for you to start something with burgers too, Kirsti.
Yeah, it's on brand.
Yeah, nice. So I guess for people that don't know who you are and what the company is that you do, how would you elevator pitch that, starting with you?
Yeah, Auror is a crime reporting and intelligence software platform. So if you think about every shoplifting, theft or fraud that happens in a retail store, every supermarket, that's reported into our platform, and then we help connect the dots on the repeat people who are causing most of the crimes. So 10% of people are causing more than 60% of the crime. And so we're now doing that across 30,000 stores around the world. We've got a team of 120 people, and a real key focus for us is how do we keep our community safe and use technology to do that.
Awesome. And your chief executive, co-founder, founder? Yep. Kirsti?
Yeah, so I am VP of People Experience and responsible for all things people and building an amazing company that we all love to come to work and be our best selves, do our best work.
Awesome. And it's interesting, right? So I've got two of you on the podcast today, and that's because we are going to dive deep into like a successful relationship with exec team and people and culture and the likes, which we'll get into, right? But how about we start with, if we just sort of tell how you got here and go into a tiny bit of a backstory. And so Kirsti, we'll start with you.
So I can probably, how far back are we going? Are we going pre-Auror or kind of the...
Yeah, go back pre-Auror, right? So how did you get to Auror?
Yeah, so that's a fun story. So the first tech company that I worked in was TradeMe, and that was the first company that actually really talked about culture and values. And that was a really amazing experience. At the time, I was an account manager in the jobs team, so that also was my entry into the recruitment world.
Yeah.
At the time, social media was becoming a thing, and so started doing this whole social recruitment thing. Fast forward.
I remember it well.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah.
Fast forward a bit, I started a consulting company called Social Source, and one of the first companies that I talked to was Vend. And at the time, they'd just raised some capital and were looking to hire pretty significantly. And I was helping out at first, but then it was like, hey, is there actually an opportunity here
Yeah.
And so there was, very fortunate for that. I think when we talk about career-defining moments, that was definitely one for me, and I think it was probably a little bit of one for you as well.
Yeah, indeed.
But yeah, got that opportunity to lead the talent piece at Vend, and hired a lot of people, as you know.
Yeah.
And it was that experience, the good stuff and the bad stuff, that really made me go, okay, what impact do I want to have? And there were two things that I really wanted to do. One was I wanted to build a product.
Yeah.
So we had a crack at building a product that was called Populate. It was around the headcount management and planning space, which I had become very passionate about.
Yeah, I remember your spreadsheet.
Yes, exactly. It was a beast.
Do you still have a spreadsheet, or do you like have a
Notion?
Tool? Yeah, nice.
But
yeah.
it's really interesting because the problem is still a problem,
Yeah.
and it hasn't really been solved well. And I find that both frustrating and kind of satisfying.
I'm building a salary product as well at the moment. I'm not sure if you know about that. And the headcount thing keeps coming up, and I'm like, oh no, I'm not ready to think about that. It's a beast.
It's such a beast. So I was building Populate, and at the same time, to help pay the bills, I was doing some consulting. And coming out of the Vend experience, I loved hiring people so much. There's nothing more satisfying than finding an amazing person, selling them the dream on the company, and like seeing them thrive in that environment. So I loved that part, but I really wanted to play a bigger part in helping that company retain people and actually, building great people experiences. So that's where the consulting kind of came in. And I kind of took the same approach that I took with the talent role, where I was like, first principles, just do what's right, hire great people, build good cultures. So did that with a bunch of different companies, and Auror was one of them. And Auror was just the one that, instead of my usual MO, which was to build and then replace myself, I was like, I do not want to replace myself. This, to me, it had all the ingredients. It had really focused founders. I was very, very appreciative of just how focused our founders were on solving this problem. They weren't off getting distracted by all the shiny things that sometimes founders can get distracted by. A product that customers loved. And really, really loved. A strategy that was clear, and everyone knew it, and everyone knew exactly how they were contributing to the company's success. And then these guiding principles that
that was evident at 10 people.
At 10 people. I knew as soon as I walked in the door. I think when we first met, I was like, oh yeah, this will be interesting, this will be fun. There's alignment there. But I definitely didn't anticipate what I saw when I got in. And I think the mission from there has really been, well, how do we scale this? If we had that at 10, how do we hold on to this and evolve it and make it better every day? And I always thought that I was a builder. I thought that I was a 0 to 1 person. And that when it got to a certain point, I wouldn't really be the right person for the job. And I remember saying to you, I was like, I think you've probably got 2 years with me, and then I'll probably not be the right person. I'll help you find that person. But I just had my 6-year Auror-versary.
Auror-versary?
Auror-versary.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Yeah. And I love it. I'm still building, still creating. Our team is incredible, and that's probably what motivates me to keep it up. And
knowing you, I know you're happy, right? And I think if I can be a little bit obtuse and honest, I don't think you were ever truly the talent person. You always were good at everything. You were always across too much, and should have been across more at Vend, should have been involved more in that team as well. And so it was really good for me to see you getting more into P&C because it felt natural to you. A lot of us joined Vend because of you, because of the culture that you created, and then you sort of got to a point where you couldn't help manifest the rest of the culture, right? And so I'm glad that you sort of got to go off and do that again from scratch.
Everything happens for a reason. And I don't think, I was ready probably at the time. And I don't know if Vend was the right place for me to be that broader PX person in the end. But it was so much fun to just go and find my own way of doing it, and not having any baggage, right? I didn't have any preconceived ideas of how it was supposed to be. I did have Kimberly, though, in my head always, who you've interviewed recently and is very close and
I'm in
dear
business
to you.
with, and I love, and
absolutely. So I would always be like, what would Kimbog do?
Yeah.
So she was a real inspiration for how I've tackled PX and made it my own.
What was your thinking, Phil, in terms of getting in PX that early? Because it's admirable, and I think it's fucking fantastic, right? And we talked about swearing on the podcast beforehand, and I can't help myself, just FYI. I think it's really cool, but a lot of founders, a lot of early stage startups avoid PX, like the plague, because they think that, they're going to change everything, they're going to make everything hard.
Rules,
they're going to,
compliance.
We're going to have all these policies and the likes. So what were you thinking at a 10-person startup to engage someone like Kirsti?
Yeah, a couple of things. One was just actually around hiring. We knew, one, it was going to take a lot of time to find the right people, and two, it was how do we find the right people? And at that point, we were 10 guys. It was a classic, like we started with 4 or 5 male co-founders, and then you hire a couple of friends, and next minute you look around the room going, oh, this is not looking very good. And the board goes, oh, this is not looking very good either. And so the discussion that we sort of had with Kirsti more naturally was like, well, how do we actually change that? And a big part was actually just reviewing, how we're writing job ads, who we're going out to approach to bring into the pipeline, and how do we actually open up that funnel at the top. And so that was almost the initial conversation from there. And then also, we were very deliberate early on around building and designing a culture, influenced partly by our own backgrounds coming out of the corporate world, where we could see the good and the bad. And then, at the time, the likes of Brian Chesky from Airbnb, sharing how they thought about culture. And we realized pretty quickly that culture happens whether or not you want it to, or whether you design it. So like, how do you want to make it your thing? And as founders, it reflects on you. So we already put a lot of that in place, and we wanted someone that would be on that journey with us to help us scale that as we go, and make sure that we actually bring that into that, even into the hiring journey, to make sure we hired the right people that didn't negatively impact on the culture.
Talk me through that, though. When you say you'd already put some things in place, are you talking about like what are our values as founders and what do we want the company to be? And you were starting to plan it out already, were you?
Yeah, we were. We had our vision and mission and guiding principles. Our value set, and a big part for us. And maybe if you want, I'll share my background because it's part of that. Prior to starting Auror, I was a commercial lawyer for 4 years and specialised in IP and privacy, and some really great things. I learned a lot in that space of time. But the thing that really bugged me about it was their approach to, every team had their own mini culture, and so we had a really great team, but across the entire firm, it was seen as a secondary, like an afterthought. And I actually went to HR and complained one day because I went to the photocopier one morning and suddenly there was just these new values on a piece of paper next to the photocopier, and it was three classic ones that you would never remember, but anyone could put that on their wall. But people first was the third one. And I was like, I went to him and said, if it's people first, shouldn't it be the first one? Like, that sort of makes sense to me. And I didn't get much of a response from that. And so it's those things that went, actually, how do we design that out, and how do we be much more influential around how we want our teams to be, and not have all these necessary subcultures, but have something that people just enjoy coming to work every day, that there aren't policies everywhere. It's actually people are there to do their best work, and you trust them, and you treat them like adults as well. Yeah,
awesome. I mean, I think North Star, right, for people in terms of EQ, IQ, North Star, right, like is phenomenal. So what are the values that you've come up with now?
So we have evolved them over time as the company has grown, and we are kind of just finalising our new ones at the moment. So there are 4.
Yeah.
And they are kind of extensions on the previous ones, but the first one is together as one.
Hang on a second. Is this the photocopier moment? Is this we're just pinning them up on the photocopier now and people don't know them in your team
No,
yet?
they do.
Okay,
and
good.
we've gone through a big feedback process. We've done. We're in kind of that mode of like, okay, is this it? And what are our rituals? So how do we know that we're actually doing these?
Okay.
So we're kind of just in the process of that. But the first one is together as one.
Yeah.
And that was really, as we scaled globally, we want to make sure that we are all moving together. I think Bobby in the US talks about ducks flying together.
Yeah.
We're all moving in the same direction. We're prioritizing those partnerships that we have with one another, and how that then translates to our customers and our partners as well. Yeah. We measure by impact. Mm-hmm. And so that really helps people make the right decisions, and those, are we choosing to go in this direction, or are we choosing to go in that direction? And how do we know that we are successful? And it's not about doing more work, it's about doing the right work. be the force for better. So that's really around continuous improvement and that better everyday mentality where we're always striving for more. And that's kind of always been something that we've had. You know, when I first started, it was relentless about improvement, but that actually felt a little bit too intense. So we kind of calmed it a little bit because we had this like tendency of we'd do a thing and it would be amazing and we'd celebrate it for less than 5 seconds because we were straight into where we could improve, which is good, but also hard. We wanted to
so it's like the level of your business, right, and the headcount that you have depends on your values, right? Because in the early days you're just fucking charging, right? And so just go for it and then celebrate that quickly second, but don't get back on them. We're ready to go again. And
exactly. And it was survival, right? Whereas now there's a lot more intention. We're being a lot more deliberate. And then the last one is a really fun one, and it's magic moments matter. And for us, it used to be add a touch of magic, which is the action, right? Like add a touch of magic. It's almost the description of it. But the magic moments matter is really focused on the outcomes. And how we see that playing out is the little thoughtful moments and the little things that we do that are actually really big things for our customers or each other. And so really just highlighting that and going, that stuff really matters. When we can do a thing, but we can take it up a few notches, take it up a few notches.
Yeah. And I guess like as a CEO, right, like when developers are listening to this or someone listening to this and they're like, fucking values, who cares about values? Or, what the fuck, a P&C, that, just PX needs to, make themselves worthwhile.
Not all developers, Troy.
Yeah, I know. But I'm giving a bad reference here. It's usually sales, let's be honest. They're the most vocal as an ex-salesperson. What do you like? How do you feel like this is really helping your business in terms of like defining out these values and changing these values? And I'm a fan, obviously, but how do you, as a CEO, say this is who we are and this is why?
I mean, you've got to bring them to life. And I think that's the the photocopier story is like there wasn't actually any discussion with why why the company had chosen those 3 values and what they actually meant and how you could operationalize them. And so. Early on for us, one of our first ones was run fast and make things happen. And the whole thing was there is obviously just bias towards action and get shit done. And then as we grew as a company and we're dealing with enterprise customers, we started to see things where people would run fast.
Get you into trouble.
And get us into trouble, like unintentionally, right? Trying to do the right thing. And so we actually have to try and then we end up changing it to be deliberate. So you can still run fast, but make sure that you've thought through why. But all these, we call them guiding principles because it's how we are guiding how we actually work together. The team, it's not about a poster on a wall. They will use these words to help describe what they're doing and why they're doing it. Add a touch of magic is a good one. Like I'm going above and beyond to add a touch of magic. Or, again, one of our earlier iterations was strong opinions loosely held. And so that was actually about raising a flag above your head. The rest of the room is in agreement. You've got a different point of view. By starting with, hey, I've got a strong opinion loosely held, you're saying, I want to dissent with the group, and it's actually okay to do that. So we had these things that were actually just people just using them day to day. And so when you came into the office and, we talked about our principles and you're like, sure, whatever, I'm used to seeing values on the wall, whatever. But then you'd hear people actually use them out loud. And that's how they got ingrained. It wasn't a poster. It was actually being used day to day.
Yeah. It's funny. I think I've interviewed a bunch of people on the podcast, and the people who have been deliberate with their values and what they want their company to be and how they want it to scale and change, particularly saying, all right, well, these are going to be our values for the next 2 to 3 years, right? People are at the heart of it, but these are the values of how we want them to display and then evolve, seem to have the most success.
But that's even the most recent ones, what we found is that our last iteration, we went from 35 people to 100 people in less than 12 months. You suddenly had 70 new interpretations of those principles. And when you got 30 people, it's actually quite, it's a really good environment, and everyone had been together for about 3 years. So it's really natural around how they were used. But suddenly everyone came and went, well, I don't really, and they would just start going a little off-piste with how they were thinking about it and using it. So that's why we had to actually go, well, are these still fit for purpose after 2 or 3 years? And we thought we could make them better, so we did. But it really is, a couple of your other episodes, the reference to culture is normally just around a table tennis table.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like this culture word is often bandied around in almost a negative light. Whereas, we look at culture as how do you actually work with other people in the company, and what do you want that environment to be like? And it isn't that it really isn't those perks and frills. It is actually about how people can do their best work, and the culture allows people to be themselves while they're there in an environment which is open and transparent with them.
Yeah, 100% agreed. Like, it's funny how everyone looked at culture as table tennis tables and pool tables and the likes, and now they have huge big offices filled with slides and table tennis tables and pool tables that no one's in, and so culture is the people working together, right, and how they can work together, and the psychological safety of them being them truly themselves and having a voice.
And
it actually it's not just internal, right? It's actually how are we working with our customers, and how do we make them feel, and what's our approach to partnering with them.
Yeah. And so what would you say, like, because you've had some good growth in terms of how the company's going now, like, I hear good things. You have a good attrition rate too, like, in terms of people, that stay in the business. And as a recruiter, we find out pretty quickly if they're not enjoying it, right? I don't think I've ever heard much, from your team at all. And so...
long may that continue.
Yeah, obviously doing something really well, like... Apart from obviously good values that people believe in, and that they believe in them if they're talking about them, right? What else is working for you?
I think it's a super strong mission. Like, people come to work every day and they see the impact they're having on the community. Crime is a super complex topic, and traditionally, particularly retail crime, which is high volume, often low value, it's been ignored. And so when you're a developer building a product, you are seeing actually the results without our name on it, but in the media, for instance, or our customers are sharing back how this is actually changing their entire approach to keeping their team safe. And we're in the US market now. We're literally helping stop potential shootings, and those are the things that actually people want to make a difference in the world, right? And we're giving them the opportunity, regardless of what they do within the company. It all adds up to helping our customers in the community.
Yeah, I was talking to an engineer the other day who's recently joined, and he shared that when he'd joined because of the people. He knew some people on the team already, and good product, but he'd really kind of not put the weight on the mission and the purpose and the outcomes that we're getting and the impact that we're having on the world. And it wasn't until he started and got amongst it that he was like, this is it. Like, this is what I'm going to optimize from now on. There has to be that purpose that they connect to. And, I don't think there's some of us that have, not myself included, but there are some people on the team that have come from retail and loss prevention. So they know the industry. They're very passionate about it. But a majority of people haven't. But we've just really quickly adopted the problem, but also accepted the responsibility that we have. And we have a big responsibility to do this right.
Is that, you think, because we're Kiwis who largely live in the world that is safe, and it's not like it's a problem here that isn't probably as pertinent for most people because they're not in that space. Where in the States, for example, right, there's a lot more a feeling of fear, right, in terms of like theft and shoplifting with guns especially.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everywhere. I think traditionally the problem hasn't been made public.
Yeah.
Like, retailers don't want to talk about the negative things that happen in their stores. It's not great from their customer experience or their loyalty point of view. And a crime like shoplifting is painted as opportunistic, and it's a kid stealing a chocolate bar, or it's hey, they're only taking money from a big corporate. It doesn't actually matter. But when we've actually helped the industry and the police understand, it's these same people. It's actually organised crime. Yeah. They do this for their day job, and they use violence as part of their tactics to get out of a store with thousands of dollars worth of goods. And you start to see that these groups of people are doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. Like, this is their job. They are exporting goods from New Zealand that they've stolen overseas, and it's this like underbelly, and it's almost the tip of the iceberg because it's all profit motivated. So actually, it links into gangs, guns, and drugs.
Yeah.
The US is more extreme because there's more guns available. But you're seeing in New Zealand our retail frontline team members having to wear stab-proof vests to work, and you're like, Like that's like and that then flows on to why would you want to do that? You know, for close to minimum wage to put yourself in harm's way every day, and to try and stop someone running out of the store with some goods. Yeah. So for us, it's going actually how do you bring data and intelligence into it to actually make that much safer environment for them that they don't have to get involved first and foremost, and then also it changes the entire relationship with the police as well. So like we're digitizing that relationship between the community and the police, and you know they're traditionally underserved with technology as well. So for us, it's like part of our job is to try and educate the public and even potential customers of what's actually going on, because they haven't had visibility in the past. It's always been individual incidents for $50 or $100, and it's not worth investigating.
Yeah, wow.
But those people do 10, 15 of those a day.
It's a whole new world.
Yeah, I like. To be honest, I would have thought, New Zealand, not much shoplifting, and like to hear organised crime and being exporting goods and the likes. Wow,
that's how we got started. We literally.
I wanted to know, how did you get started? So.
We saw an article in the paper that said retail crime in New Zealand costs $2 million a day. Wow. And we called bullshit on it. We're like, no, that's massive. That's a huge number. We went out and spoke to a couple of hundred retail stores, and it was like, yes, like financially big problem, but actually for us. It's the impact on our team from a safety and violence point of view, and man, it's hard to report a crime. And I don't know if you've ever reported a crime to the police anywhere in the world, it's not a great experience. Like from a customer experience point of view,
they don't even come anymore if you've had something stolen, right?
Exactly, right. And but then as the member of the public, you go, well, for a $50 crime, do I want the police spending $1,000 of their time and resource to go investigate that? No, but again, that person's actually done $10,000 worth of crime. Yeah. They just don't know about it. Wow. So that's sort of how we got started, was just understanding that no one's reporting crime anymore because there's no outcomes from it. But it is happening every day in these stores across our country. And then we looked more globally, and it's $150 billion a year. Someone like Walmart, they've spoken publicly about this before. They lose about $3 billion a year from shoplifting, and that's ultimately we pay for that in terms of the higher price of goods, and the cost of going through the justice system, court system, police, everything else. So
you're a lawyer at the time,
reformed now.
Yeah. I've got like lawyer founders are in my tick box, like founders that I like working with. So good, challenging but good. Talk me through, like, was your founding team startup enthusiasts, had done this before, were coming together? Like, what was the early days like?
Yeah, we didn't actually know each other very well. Like a mutual friend brought us together, and I think the commonality was that we all wanted to do more, I think, and we wanted to build our own business. Yeah. So that was the initial point, and then this problem was just an interesting problem. But Tom, my co-founder, was a management consultant at Deloitte. Yeah. Loves, one, speaking to customers and understanding problems, and two, has got a great mind for product and product strategy. And then James Corbett was our technical co-founder. He was actually still just finishing university at the time, but I think he was developing number 4 at Xero Auckland office. Yeah. So he actually stayed on there for a couple of years to be on the rocket ship and bring learnings back across as we went. And we had 2 other co-founders that one dropped out after about 2 or 3 years, and the other one helped bring the team together but never actually joined the company. Yeah. So that was sort of how we got started. But it took a few years to actually build that trust and figure out how we work together. And I think guiding principles and culture actually really helped bring us together even more and have that shared understanding of what company we wanted to build. Yeah. And then from there, it's been 10 years and 11 years now. So it's been slow and steady in our minds, but we're still at almost the start line of what we want to do and what we want to achieve globally as well. Yeah,
it's funny how that happens, right? Like slow and steady in your mind, 10 years of grafting. In our mind, we're like, holy fuck, Auror's everywhere over the last 2 years. Where did they come from? That's
but I really liked that too, though, as I really liked how, and it was probably a little bit different from Vend. Vend, we were like friggin' everywhere all the time. I really liked at Auror, we were just heads down building the company. Yeah. And
I didn't hear from you for years, dude. You're just like, sorry, I got a mission.
Yeah.
I'm out. Yeah.
And it's flown by. It's wild. But yeah, I did really appreciate that we were just focused on building a really great company. And then when we were ready to pop up and go, hey, look at us. Yeah, it's been amazing. And I think I've really enjoyed seeing the candidates that we've been able to attract as well, like coming to us, if they've been affected by layoffs or if they're just looking for something new, and the amount of people that will reach out and be like, Auror's the one.
Yeah.
That's insanely satisfying for me.
Yeah. And what's changed from 10 people to 100 people now?
Everything.
Everything.
The vision and the mission, what we're doing hasn't changed. Slight wording changes here and there, but
do you have a definitive mission statement, to solve crime?
It changes. It's just changing at the moment, actually. But ultimately, it's around making the world a safer place.
Yeah. And so, sorry, just to put a pin in that now and say, for people that are listening to this or watching this now and they're like, well, how the fuck does that product work? How would you describe the product?
Great question.
At its most simplest, it's a crime reporting form.
Yeah.
So a store manager or a security guard will fill out, what's happened, who was involved, what products were taken, and then the platform helps to make suggested connections across those crime events.
Yeah.
For an investigator to actually go, hey, these are the same people, or in the same group operating right across. And then we have things like license plate recognition add-ons. So if you drive into a fuel station, to a BP or a Z, we help to identify the vehicles that have previously done a drive-off at those sites, and they can then get the pumps on prepay, which means actually for the 99% of good customers, they're not impacted by a negative experience of, hey, all the pumps are on prepay because we've been, we're losing lots of money.
Yeah.
And so we actually helped drive down crime at those sites by about 70%, 70.
Wow.
So a massive change. But actually the thing that was even more interesting was we realized that every time a car came onto a site, the person behind the counter would look out their window and wouldn't even get an alert like that, would have a sort of a best guess of, does that person look dodgy? Does the vehicle look dodgy? Or is there a license plate on a sticky note stuck to my computer?
Wow.
That was their prevention strategy, and it was just full of bias and often racial bias. And so we thought, actually, how do you take an evidence-based approach to stopping crime rather than the bias piece? And so taking it out of their hands, and well-intentioned, right, but they're having to make that decision hundreds of times a day.
Uneducated decision.
Very uneducated.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we saw, which we didn't expect out of it, was that their customer complaint rate went down 90% because they had people stop ringing up and going, hey, I was at this site and I was put on prepay, or I wasn't allowed to get petrol. Wow. What's going on? Is it because of the way that I look? So it's those things that actually were changing how how you can have an impact on subjectivity and racial bias. We did things like we removed ethnicity from our form, which has always just been there, and people have captured that.
Yeah.
We went, well, these days you've got an image. Why do you need to assume who someone is, and therefore you can't do bad data analysis on who you think is stealing from you or across the country either. So we're doing a whole lot of things around that social piece as well, which has traditionally been ignored in this space.
What's it like working with the police?
Ultimately, it's really satisfying because you are helping them get outcomes which are massive impacts on the community. So every homicide, kidnapping, drug investigation in New Zealand, the police are using the Auror platform to help them with that. So we're seeing those roll-on impacts. And as a startup, super hard working with a government agency and law enforcement no less. And it was a good test of patience and resilience to work with them. But ultimately it came down to, we proved out the impact we could have and sort of came at them from a different angle than what they used to, and helped convince them that partnerships is the way, because the police aren't the only ones responsible for dealing with crime. It's actually a community problem. So we're going, well, how do you use technology to try and bridge that gap and bring everyone together and play as a team?
Yeah. Yeah, well, interesting. Interesting. And how, Kirsty, like for you, like how do you think this has changed for you for your time at Ben? Like, what do you think has been the magic moment? To quote you, did I fucked it up? Did I?
That was good.
Yeah. What would you think? Because I feel like you're really, really engaged. Like
almost 2. No, that's not true.
That's you, regardless, right?
Yeah. I mean, I really love what I do, right? And I think I get like the thing that probably keeps me waking up super early in the morning, excited to go to work, is the impact piece.
Yeah.
So I like every single thing that we do, it matters. There's nothing that we're just doing for the sake of it. And, you know, I think I am probably pretty motivated by the team that we've built. Like I work hard for them. They're my priority. I get really emotional, don't I?
Yeah.
I cry lots.
Lots of
like
tears.
more
Happy
than
tears.
I think I've ever cried. But they're really like happy, proud tears. Like I love seeing the team win. I love seeing them thrive. And I just get really proud. And I think pride for me is probably the biggest driver of culture, but also just of my own personal motivation, is I'm just really proud.
Yeah. I had Penny Barton on the podcast, right? Penny's just stepped into a CE role, and we were talking about how chief like people or people and culture and the likes, and how you are exposed to the business so much. And she said sometimes you get opportunities where you get to work so closely with a founder that you become an extension of and the likes, and that feels like, I mean, obviously you two are sitting here now.
100%.
Yeah.
And that has its downsides as well, like around often how we, not how we interact, but, you know.
Are we talking about me being needy?
Yeah.
So there's a story behind that.
Do you need to phone a friend? Oh, yeah.
So the CEO, huge amount of responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think maybe me being a founder before, there's like an empathy that I have. Like I get it, I understand. I also never stay in my lane. So like good luck trying to get me to just focus on like people things. Like I'm probably going to have a perspective on literally everything. So I think that's a good thing for sure. And I try and channel it to good. But you know, as the CEO, like Phil has a million different things that he needs to focus on. And I was going through this period where I wasn't, like we hadn't had that much time together, because we often find that we don't need that much time together because we're aligned, we're kind of heading in the right direction. But yeah, I remember saying that I was like needing some attention, and then I was being really, like, I was just being needy. I was like, I just need to spend some time kind of thing. I need to know that I'm aligned. I need to know that we're moving in the same direction. And Phil's response to me was like, Kirsti, you're not a fire. Like right now, like my time, my energy, like I have to focus on the areas that need me most. So like take this as a compliment. Take this, you know, this is a good thing. Like you're okay. You've got this. So now it's kind of cool. Like we have a very trusted relationship, and I think we're good at kind of nicely calling one another out on things and helping each other be better, which I think is really important for the CEO in particular, and for the people role actually, because they're kind of lonely roles. Yeah. They're hard roles for people to give feedback to. They're hard roles for like the expectations that people have on these roles. And so, we have to be a really good team. And
and I think part of that was just, you know, from what I saw, it was almost you were almost questioning whether or not what you were doing was valued, because we weren't, you know, wasn't giving sort of compliments or spending enough time together.
The dopamine wasn't coming in, right?
Exactly.
So,
and
it's a recognition.
Again, there's a downside of being a founder and being so focused on the next thing and how do we make things better. We can often overlook the giving compliments and actually just ensuring that people know that they are valued because they are. But my point to Kirsti was more like the fact that I'm not having to talk to you about things is a really positive sign. Like I value you so much, I know what you're doing and that you've got it, that I'm not checking in, you know, every day on you.
I trust you. What do you like? So this is actually the first time on the pod that I've had two people that work in the same company, so it's cool to be able to chat to that, right? What are some of the, like, should there be tension between some key people and startups, like at the SLT team? Should there be that tension? Should it be sunshine and lollipops all the time? What's your thoughts?
Definitely not. I mean, we have what we call mission control, which is our executive leadership team, basically. So there's 6 of us in that team, and we talk a bit about the need for us to be our first team. Like we need to have each other's backs. We need to have high trust, and we can still challenge each other, and we do. And like we I think we're pretty good at challenging one another. And it's a responsibility too, right? Like we don't want people to just sit back, and we don't want silent dissent. And so it is really important that there is that healthy tension. And I think it's a really important role that Tom plays in particular is he'll challenge us, even if he's actually aligned and on the same page, he'll often throw in a perspective and a challenge just to play that other role and be like, well, hang on a minute, let's argue the other side. Like his ability to argue both sides is awesome, and you learn quite a lot from that. So yeah, it's a good healthy.
I love that, like steel man exercise, right? Like where you just tell someone, okay, yeah, look, I think it's a good idea, but now argue on the other side for me, and then watch them go. Yeah, it's a fantastic way.
Amazing skill.
But it's even just making sure with that executive team in particular, but ideally across the whole company, that people are thinking about what's best for the company, not what's best for them, not what's best for their area. That's when you get into those, like, we hate politics. And
I don't even know how to do it.
Yeah.
No, and that's that's been a challenge at times, bringing in people from other like larger organisations, and that's how they have to operate. And we was like, that just doesn't fly here. Like, don't care that you want to build up your little area within Auror. Like, actually, it's not your budget. We actually don't have budgets. We've got a financial plan, and that can change pretty quickly based on what we think is best for the company.
Yeah.
But then you end up with people just having egos and wanting to do something that's best for them, not for everyone else.
Well, it's this like context thing too, right? So what in some larger organizations, information is power, right? Like if you get a bit of context, a bit of information, you're going to use that for your own purposes. And in an environment like Auror, where right from day dot, it's been default open. So if you get a piece of new information, if you get some context, if there's an email from a customer, like anything new, that gets shared generally in an open channel that's open for the entire company. And so there is so much context and so much sharing, like it puts everyone on the same page, like everyone has the same info.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely an adjustment for some people who haven't come from environments like that. And they very quickly learn that they have to share, and they have to share fast. And it does create quite a lot of noise. Like as the team has scaled, that's way more information or way more context. But the way I see it is the overhead of reading some context and some information and either choosing to discard it or not, like pike it back or hold on to it, is far less than the overhead of not having a piece of information.
Yeah. And that's where for me cultures start changing, is when they don't have the information they need to understand what the company is anymore, right? Or what's happening in the company, and silos start popping up, right?
Hate silos.
Yeah, like we had Nick Holdsworth on the podcast, right? Nick talked about his time from Bend to Xero, and he talked about how Xero went from, like 1,000 to 6,000, whatever, during his tenure, and he had to pitch against banking execs that were in his peer level on budget, and he was like having to design out the budget of his team, and he was like, I want to start with 10 developers because I don't know how good it's going to be yet, but if I get 10, I can turn it into something and it might be good. But he had to start learning how to be political and pitching against other execs, in business. And so ultimately, eventually, if you're successful in business, it's going to look like that at some description, because that's just how middle managers manage, right? But I think if we're thinking about business and growing and thinking about what the next stage is and starting to plan for it, you can be a lot more calculative to keep that culture and keep that openness. Definitely. And so, what do you see the challenges of growing from 100 to 5?
The biggest one for me is that I haven't done it before. So I just don't know what that looks like or what it should look like. And there's not that many.
Had you grown from 0 to 100 before?
No. The challenge is how do you scale yourself as fast or faster than the team, and get comfortable with that, and also just being okay with the unknown and the uncertain. And we do have this focus on learning. Like, we're happy to talk to anyone, particularly even ideally those that are bigger than us who have done that. But even talking to other companies that are 3 or 4 years behind you, you can still pick up some interesting things of how do you then apply that to your own space too. So that's the big one. And then I think more people, more problems has been my catchphrase for the last 12 months, where there's just more moving parts, right? And that is that can be a challenge. And so again, how do we try and mitigate that as much as possible?
Yeah.
And it's that connection piece too, right? Like a couple of months ago, we brought everyone around the world to Auckland for a week. And we had a couple of different goals in that. And there was like alignment, so making sure that everyone was on the same page and ready to go. And connection was another really big one, like actually just building those relationships in person with one another. And
especially after COVID, right? Like, where
so many people hadn't met one another. And so that really highlighted to us the value of being really deliberate around making sure that we continue to be able to do that and prioritize that.
Yeah.
Like we're all busy, we all have lots on, but that human connection that we have with one another is what will get us through the hard times as well. And I've been reflecting a little bit, even just in the last kind of month or so, of where my time can be best spent. And there is a million things that I could be doing, but what I'm actually prioritizing right now is just getting closer to people. So it's way harder for me to feel connected to 120 people than it was, the 30 people or whatever it was before.
Yeah.
But I realize the value of that. And if I can help people feel connected and aligned and know where we're going and know that, we care, we listen, we act on feedback, then that's a job hopefully well done.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's so much pressure out there in startup land that we have to design our culture by default, like X company has done or Y company's done, because they're the new cool company, right? And so everyone has to do what is it at the moment? It's I don't even know what it is. I try and stay out of it now. But
you can't
Spotify's squad culture, Netflix's culture deck, and blah blah blah.
Like
right?
I like just taking all of the best parts from everyone else's stuff, and just doing what's right for us and our people and our team. And our team are our culture. Like every single person that comes on board, they add a little bit of extra magic to it, and it evolves, and hopefully it gets better. But it's
you got to have a reason for doing it, and like DEI is a really good example of that. A lot of companies look at that as a tick box exercise of, well, everyone else is talking about it, so I better do something about it, but they don't actually have a reason for it or care about it.
Yeah.
And for us, I talked about how we started with effectively at one point 10 guys, and we went on a 6-7 year journey to change that, and we just knew it was going to be small steps. But the thing for us wasn't about, we've been told by the board to do it and therefore tick this box. It was actually going, we want our team to represent the community because our product can impact on the community in a positive way, and also a negative way for those who are offending. But also all of our users come from such a diverse background, being in retail in particular. So actually, how do we make sure that our team looks and sounds and feels like our community will then ultimately build a better product? We'll better be able to serve our users and customers there, and we'll be thinking about the impacts we'll have on the world and how do we can mitigate any downsides to that. And that's how been our approach to it. And so, we're now at 53% women, and gender was a core focus for us because we actually had pretty good diversity of ethnicity when we started. Our exec team's 50-50. We made sure that with our last funding round that we had to get a woman approved to be on the board. So we're taking these sort of, again, small steps, but over a number of years it can have a big impact. And now, again, ultimately people want to come to work and not have to think about, who they think they have to be there. They just want to be themselves, and they're going to do their best work. So selfishly for us, it's actually going to get better people and better outcomes from those people by having an environment which is diverse and it's safe and people feel like they actually belong when they come in.
It's amazing to hear that, right? Because I tell the story a lot to my clients, and I'll say, you're going to get to this point where I can fucking find anyone amazing for you. It doesn't matter where they've come from. It doesn't matter who they are, what their background is, sex, race, relation, whatever it is. If they want to work there, they'll come and work there because it's inclusive, it's better, and it's what you say, right? Like diversity and inclusion for me is around, like, just be the world that we live in. Just be representative of the world that we live in. And it's try and make it as simple as that.
And obviously, it just gets way harder the bigger you are if you have that diversity debt. And you've got to make, you've got to be deliberate about the whole thing. You got to make those trade-offs where we've had roles that we haven't filled. We've gone back to the drawing board, or we've parked it because we haven't had the right candidates that come in that will ensure that team remains diverse or becomes diverse from that as well. So that's like a hard decision, because it'll be really easy just to go, well, that person's still pretty good, we'll just fill the role. But we're looking at the long term going, but actually it's going to make it harder for the next 3 hires in that space.
Yeah.
The work never stops on that either.
Yeah. How do you teach because like you're at the precipice now, we're at 100 people. That's when you start losing some of the ability to tell the story internally, and so other people start telling it for you, right? And it's always weird when you're in a situation where you hear other people telling your story and you're like, oh, that's close, but not, yeah. How do you continue to scale that now, right? Where you've got the next level down, sort of who are the culture ambassadors as well, where you can't be so full on it?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not necessarily something that I've seen as an issue yet. And I think I think everything is so ingrained, like where we are all telling the same stories kind of over and over again, and it's just kind of naturally just cascaded through. And so, yeah, I mean, you've given me probably something to think about in terms of making sure that we do hold on to that. Yeah. But I think like one of the outcomes that I see that makes me feel like this is okay is probably our hiring, where, there was a period of time where every single candidate was met by Phil and Tom.
Yeah.
And then there was, the time that it was every single candidate was met by me. For both of us now, like there are candidates that we haven't met until they have started and they're doing their intro sessions with us. And I see like the quality of talent and like the density of the talent in Auror is all down to the people that are doing the hiring. Like they've all just picked up like how and who and what, and like just how to hire at Auror and bring amazing Aurors in. And so it's just kind of fed through. Which feels really good.
I believe that, right? Because I like the news that I hear about Auror is company news. Like it's company, and it never feels really individual. And even the fact that I'm like, hey, Kirsti, come and chat with me on the podcast, and you're like, hang on, I'd rather bring Phil in because I think we could tell the story of the company, right? And so every nuance into that feels like that resonates out. And so like, yeah, I definitely believe it. I think it's harder when you like other people start making those decisions for you, and you have those moments where you're like, oh my God, I'm a control freak and I have to stop meeting everyone. But then you realize, oh, actually, they're doing a good job.
But so much of it does come down to trust too, right? And like we have to, we talk about trust batteries a lot, which is something that Toby from Shopify first kind of coined, where you start working with someone and you have a battery, and that charge might be like 50%. And there are things that someone can do that can either increase your charge or decrease your charge. Yeah. And then how you then work with them is often determined by that level of charge. So someone with less charge, you're going to naturally see that through a lens of negativity, like this person's might not be any good kind of thing. Yeah. And then likewise, if someone's got really high charge, almost they can do nothing wrong. Like they're amazing. And we all have different levels of charge with different people as well. And I think where I was kind of going with this is when you're able to build trust and be really intentional about building trust, you can make those little corrections along the way to just kind of, the intention is very clear that it's good, and you're able to have that conversation, and it comes with empathy, and it is a conversation as well. It's not just like Phil telling someone their idea is shit. Like it's like, hey, like tell me why you did this, and like what were you kind of thinking, and like what was your approach, and then being able to get to a better place. And
conversely, it's actually about having people tell me that my idea is shit, because it's like,
that's scary.
I'm just throwing out, I've got a thought, I'm just throwing it out there. I actually don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea. And people go, oh, well, it's the CEO or it's the founder. We better do what they want to, and we have people say, oh, well, I'll just do it. Then I was like, why? It's a terrible idea. But if you have that level of trust and transparency and go like, you can challenge anyone in the company. Don't care. We're a fairly flat hierarchy for that reason. Going, call it out. And that comes back to that guiding principles piece of you having the ability to say, even if you're a graduate and you just go like, strong opinion loosely held, this would be a better way of approaching it, or your idea is shit for these 3 reasons.
Psychological safety at work is so important, and it's a superpower that many people don't get. And if you can enable your team to have those conversations with anyone in the business, you've got an engaged fucking team, in my opinion.
You quickly see where there are problems if people can't as well.
Yeah, and that's where it stops, right? That's where the culture starts fracturing, is when people lose that ability to have that voice because they feel like the company's too big, their voice is going to get lost, no one's going to respect them. But.
Yeah, and what ends up happening is if they're feeling like that and they're feeling like they can't say their bit, they'll try and find someone else that they think might feel like that too. And then you've got a click on your hands, and that is a culture killer, basically.
Yeah, and it sucks people in. Negativity, right? It's easy to be negative and look at if you're unable to get your voice out, then it's easy to be vocal about it.
And then you get this validation of it, right? And you're like, oh, I must be right, like this, this shit kind of thing. So yeah, it's stopping those kinds of things from happening.
But to your point, it's never ending. Like, there's a whole lot more we can do better today.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about, right?
Yeah.
So for the people that are listening to this again, well, fuck, they seem like they've got it figured out at 100. Don't believe what you read all the time.
Yeah.
But there is obviously a lot that you have figured out well. So if we were writing the culture deck for Auror right now and we're saying, hey, these are the things we fucking nailed and that we think everyone should be looking at, what are the things that sort of come up on your list?
That's a great question.
That is a good question. Where to start?
So for me, if I was to give you some help here, the values thing where you're re-energizing your values for who you are in the next stage is something that I wish more people would do.
Yeah.
And even just for that, I mean, again, the previous iterations was predominantly the founders doing it. And and probably with Kirsti as well.
Well, values are the founders initially in the early days, right? Because it's your DNA and your ethics and that you're trying to get out.
Exactly. But for this latest one, we actually went out and said, who are our cultural champions and ambassadors? Again, right across the team, regardless of their title and role. And we had a really good mix. And we asked other people, like, who would you think best carries or embodies the culture of Auror? And so we had a number of people nominated. I actually wasn't involved in the first part of that process. Tom was running it as one of the founders, but we had sort of 6 or 7 people just from across the business that shared their ideas of what's working, what's not working,
Awesome.
And went from there. So, but that comes down to that whole trust piece again, and actually just treating people like people and involving them in things rather than being sort of almost like an adult-child relationship a lot of the time where you're telling people what they can and can't do. It's actually, how do you, we talk about, we don't really have policies. We've got some guides, and it's more like, how do we help you make the best decision? But when you start doing what you can say and what you can't do, that's where it falters, I think.
Yeah. Now that I've had some time to think about that question too. So values are definitely a core piece. Mm-hmm. I think the next part is around those principles, as Phil said. So it's not about having rules of what you can and cannot do. It's about helping people make the right decisions and giving those guidelines. I think the leadership part is probably one of the playbooks and the key parts.
What do you mean by the leadership part?
So investing in our leadership. We know how a manager can influence and impact someone's experience at work, and our job is to make sure that we have the best leaders that we can that are aligned and supportive. And I want our leaders to be the people that are raising everybody else up and making them better and helping them and supporting them. And so having a really clear guide around how we lead, and we've invested in that area pretty significantly over the last 12 months, and continue to do so as well. And there's just that whole approach, and we do this with our executive coach as well, is you can have a team of champions or you can have a championship team. Yeah. And that's our mission right now, is like, how do we drive high performance? How do we continue to have this high care for people while still having a high care for performance and doing better and being accountable and being a championship team and bringing everyone up? And so I think, that those are kind of the themes that we would embed through, and with that ultimate kind of view of everyone being really connected to that purpose and mission where, they love coming to work because of the impact that they have on the world.
And I think as founders, another part for me would just be, don't believe your own hype and have low ego. And it's all about how do you constantly get better and how do you learn from others, and not doing everything for yourself, right? Because also that will rub off to everyone else, going, well, that's what Phil wants to do all the time, then I'm going to go and maximize things for my own benefits as well. So it's like having...
How the fuck do you do that though in a startup that's blowing up, right? Like, I mean, I
Like
know,
blowing up good or bad?
good, right? Like, you're starting to get hype now. Everyone's looking at you now thinking, you're the next thing. We've been waiting for the next one. You're the next one. People start asking you, come on my podcast, like come at this talk and the likes. How do you not believe your own bullshit?
I think we've taught ourselves to be focused on improvement, and it's really becomes, it can be a positive and a negative, and it's a bit of a roller coaster. But like for Tom and I, we went out and talked to, we've done every job in the company ourselves over the time. And early on, we went out and spoke to every retailer. Like we did all the training for every retail store in New Zealand. We'd drive around the country doing that to understand the problem better and understand people. And we'd go and do these, we'd go and train the police, 10, 15, 30 people in a room. Every time we had a session and we got out of that, the first thing we'd do was we'd sit like in the car and just say to each other, cool, what could we have done better?
We're definitely going to do that after this.
Yeah, and it can almost ruin that. We talk about we're not great at celebrating things. We had probably our best trade show in the US 2 weeks ago that we've ever had before. And we were talking about how great it was, and then in the next conversation at the same time at the trade show, we're talking about all the things that were, either going wrong or could go wrong across the company. And so I think that's the thing. It's just we know that where we want to go to, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And so how do you look at the things that are issues or may become issues and try and stop that? And as you scale, it gets harder, right? Because if you don't put out the fire somewhere or even the smoke, and you double the team size again, then you've got way more problems as we go. So it's trying to figure out how do you scale in an effective way. The rule is generally, don't do more than double in a year.
Yeah.
We did about 120% in our big scaling year, and we felt that creak and things break. And that's why we sort of pulled back on hiring to make sure we actually can settle the team in again before we then went again. So I don't envy the teams that are just constantly hiring and scaling full time from 10 to 1,000.
It is impossible to have that same level of emotional connection within your team if you're doing that. It's absolutely impossible, right?
And that's why you need to trust your leaders and the leaders' and, how that cascades. You've got to empower them to have those connections and to trust that they've got them.
Yeah, and especially in startups, leadership training, leadership coaching, empowering leaders is one of the most important things for me. A lot of the times we step into roles we're not leaders in the past, or we've come from, like IC, best developer in the business, next minute we're the VP of engineering or whatever it may be, and secretly shitting ourselves because we don't know how to do, or we know how to do it our way, but we don't know how to teach it. And so it's quite important.
And there's a massive, as a founder, there's a massive fear of failure because it's even less about yourself, but you go, I've got 100 people and their families that I'm responsible for now.
Yeah.
So if things do go, terribly wrong, like that's all on me, and that's how you feel. So it's again going, if you do believe you're all your own hype and everything else, then that can happen pretty quickly as well. So
awesome.
It's hard to kind of balance as well because we have that in mind, right? And we're like protective of the team. We want to make sure that we get this right. And it's balancing the being a little bit conservative and focusing on sustainability and growing really safely and carefully with also seeing this huge opportunity that we have ahead of us and not wanting to not do everything we can to reach it. So there's this constant kind of seesaw that we're on of not wanting to go too fast and break anything, but also being worried that we're going to miss something.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you are. I'm glad you are worried about it. I'm glad you are thinking about it as much as you do. I'm glad that you feel the weight of the situation when you're building something so potentially fucking huge and big and awesome. And so, information sharing is something I'm pretty passionate about. I'm finishing the episodes this year with what information would you give to someone to share? So if we're going to pop something in the show notes for this podcast for people to jump down and have a look, whether it be like a book or whether it be a podcast or a website or a training course or something that you're like, hey, this really did something for me, what would you give them, Kirsti? I can see you smiling, so you've got one there.
No, it's funny, right? It's because when I first heard about this, there was kind of two parts. So there was one part where I was like, make it really like relevant to scaling people and, you know, building companies and teams. But then I was like, what is the thing that's had the biggest impact on me recently?
Yeah.
And I watched this YouTube video. It's a TED Talk with Sal Khan, who is the CEO of Khan Academy.
Yeah.
And it talks about how they're using AI and the AI tutor that they have created that enhances the learning experience for children.
Yep.
And it just blows your mind. Like, I watched it with Felix, and he may, or this is 13-year-old stepson, he may or may not have told his English teacher in the days following that she was going to lose her job because of AI, which was probably not ideal, but I really am fascinated with where education is going and how kids are learning now. And I watched that video and I was like, holy shit, like, this is epic. Like, bring it on.
Yeah, we'll pop it in. I've watched it as well. It's awesome. Yeah, I shared it with my kids.
Did you share?
Yeah.
Did they do the same thing as Felix?
Molly did. Mitch actually like came back to me and sort of said, "Oh, Dad, I'm thinking about AI for all these things now." And I was like, "Yeah." So I got him like spark in his brain. Where Molly was like, "Oh yeah, teachers are fucked."
It's really wild. So in English,
has Felix been using ChatGPT for a while?
Yeah, as soon as it came out, we showed him because we were like, this is amazing. So in school, like, they have to write the story in the book in the class first, like this task, because the teachers are so worried that they're going to use the technology.
Yeah,
to do
but
it.
the technology, teachers need to be sort of not scared by it, because the technology used in the right way can enable kids for better learning. Like I get my daughter and Mitch, my son, I'll say use ChatGPT to go off and find articles that you should read, you know, so to narrow it down to help you, or use ChatGPT to summarize something if you don't understand it, to like summarize it in a 13-year-old's voice so that you might understand it. And they use that now, and it's fantastic.
And we use it at work, so shouldn't we be trying to prepare our kids for that?
Yeah. We call ChatGPT Jeff at Talent Army, and so Jeff is in a full-time job at the moment.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, there's not many days that I don't use it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. What nugget would you give out, mate?
I'll share two books, and they're linked because they come from a sort of a military background, and it's always great to learn from literally life and death situations. So the first is Extreme Ownership, written by a couple of Navy SEALs, and what that taught me was around how do you look at yourself before blaming others. Yeah. So actually, generally, if something happens, you got to go, well, actually, it's probably my fault in some way, and figuring out it's sort of how you get yourself better in a different mindset than just it was their fault or it was the environment's fault, not myself. And the other one is Team of Teams by General Stanley McChrystal, which is actually all about information sharing and having that trusted, open relationships and transparency to allow the teams to do more and be better, with removing hierarchy and these silos of information to get to a better outcome. So I've used both of those a lot around how do I build the team and how do I focus on myself as well. Yeah,
awesome. Defense books for me are fantastic. The amount of learning, like one of my favorite quotes of all time is Colin Powell's quote, a team of yes men is a redundant team. And that always moved me. But thank you so much for coming on, both of you. I know you've got busy schedules. You jumped on, brought together, which was really, really cool. I think what it says to me is, like, if people are listening or watching this podcast, to see two people come together from people and culture, an exec and a CEO, it says more about your culture before you even said a word, and then I think when the word started coming out, people believed it straight away from day one. And so if people want to go out and look at Auror as a business to work in, they can go off and check out our notes below. They can understand what the values are now. They're proudly sitting above the photocopier. People knew about them beforehand. Yeah. And so, hey, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciated it.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thank
Roy.
you.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
Well, as you see, I'm repping the Auror t-shirt here. So for future podcast guests, if you want me to wear your merch, bring in an extra large t-shirt, and I'm happy to wear the one on the podcast. I love helping and supporting startups. I love giving this platform to people, and I love hearing information and stories like we just heard from Phil and Kirsti before. It's really important for me to see people experience being taken seriously from an early stage in companies, because I think that's how we grow. People are the heart of what we do. If we're a people-first company, it should be something that we're thinking about earlier. And so I really like that chat. I love Phil. in terms of like the books that he gave. I'm actually going to go off and read some of those books over the weekend, this weekend. Fascinating. I loved Kirsti's just approach and the human that she is. And so I hope you enjoyed that one as much as I did. I'm sure it'll go up. I'm sure it'll be big. I love the fact that this podcast now in Auckland has, really just taken it to another level again. We're getting approached by so many people now to come onto the pod that we're shooting in Auckland. We're going to try and get around the country. We're going to try and do some pods in Christchurch for the High Tech Awards. Thank you to Jono's wife for just hearing about that for the first time. And so thanks for everyone that's watching and listening. Please help us out. I know I harp on this all the time, but jump on and subscribe. It helps us grow this platform. Share it with people that like it, or share it with people that you think will like it, because they don't know about it until they've seen it. And so until then, until next time, thanks again. See you soon.
This podcast is produced by John Otaka from Empire Films.